Chapter 25. A Chance for Redemption. Sim and Allie waited in front of the wood and straw-covered hovel in the damp rain, waiting for Chris to emerge. They could see the main road off in the distance with a series of similar homes next to it. A single wood cart pulled by a gray horse clattered down the road, hauling a collection of wood. The driver watched them from afar intently, his hood pulled low to cover his face. Allie looked back at him as he passed, sensing the driver's own judgment being passed over them. Chris emerged from the house with a burlap bag on his shoulder, his bow and quiver in one hand, and a walking stick in the other.
"Follow me,"
he said, walking away from the house and up toward the road. He showed no emotion, no sense of remorse. He kept his eyes on the road ahead, with not another word. Sim and Allie followed, doing their best to keep a good distance behind him. Sim looked back at the small hovel, feeling guilt that they had pulled Chris away from his father. He understood Chris's pain of losing a mother and father, or rather, someone who was like a father to him.
Hey, Sam.
Allie's voice dragged Sim's attention back to the road ahead of them.
Yeah?
There's something I've been meaning to ask you, but haven't been sure when was the right moment to ask. For a while now.
You want to know about Aria?
Sim said without hesitation, keeping his eyes fixed on Chris's back.
Yeah.
She replied.
Back in New York, you said her name when you woke up.
Allie could see the discomfort on his face. His fear about catching the plague was minor compared to his fear of letting his buried woes stricken him ill with grief again.
She was my partner, my closest friend, and the person who stole my affections growing up. She was braver than me, and smarter too. She used to be my personal history buff before you came along. We grew up in the orphanage together. My first day in Asphodel, I sat in the bedroom of the orphanage crying alone. The only person I'd ever cared about was my mother, and now she was lost to me forever. Aria was the same age and had been living in Asphodel for nearly a year. She heard me crying alone in the boys' bedroom and sat down on the bed next to me. She just wrapped her arms around me and didn't say a single word. She just sat by and comforted me through every tear until the sadness subsided. From then on, we grew up together as best friends. We bonded like magnets, always pushing each other along and staying inseparable through each struggle. Wherever one of us went, the other one followed. Whether it was causing trouble or comforting new kids as they arrived, we stuck together. We were guardians before we were even given the title. Erlen heard about what we were doing for Viola and soon kept a close eye on us for himself. It wasn't until we were both 14 that Erlen chose us as his students. He originally only picked Aria to be trained as a guardian, but she told him she wouldn't go without me at her side. After that, the two of us trained together, never leaving each other's back unguarded, as always. We worked together through each late night of training and studying. Gradually, over time, we became more than just friends.
Allie could see the loss burning in Sim's eyes.
What happened?
Sim grunted, followed by a quick breath. He struggled to speak.
She died. Same way as Erlen. Before she died, Erlen went in to save someone by himself and couldn't get back before the world he was trying to save was destroyed. It left the two of us heartbroken. Otto had been working with Erlen for only a year, while Aria and I grew up admiring him like a father. We both took it pretty hard. We started taking on new missions and shifts while the other one took time to mourn.
Sim's eyes grew distant as he stared unseeing at the air in front of him.
I had just returned from another trip on my own.
Aria laid back on Sim's bed, reading a book. Her deep, green eyes scanned the pages as she read, desperate to preoccupy her mind. She heard someone coming up the stairs beyond the bedroom door. The slow pounding of someone walking up the steps filled her with a sense of relief. She placed her bookmark between the pages and set the book down on the end table. She stood up from the bed and fixed her hair. Opening the bedroom door, she saw Sim helping a middle-aged man with a limp, wrapped in a blanket, climb the stairs. Sim smiled at her as he reached the top of the stairs. Sim helped the man into the bedroom at the far end of the balcony, while Aria watched from the doorway. Sim closed the door quietly and left the man to sleep in peace. He walked down the hallway to her and shook his head with fatigue as he entered the room.
How'd it go?
Asked Aria, watching as Sim slumped onto the bed. Sim groaned and put a pillow over his head.
An old woman found him wandering in her pumpkin patch outside her home. I was forced to ask around town until a street merchant told me the old woman was gossiping to everyone who she had found.
Aria sat down at the end of the bed next to Sim's feet.
Oh, my poor baby had to actually ask for help?
Aria smiled, even as she teased him.
Well, that's what I have you for.
So I'm like your seeing eye dog, huh? I speak for you?
Sim lifted the pillow up and looked at her. She looked back at him through her wavy, dark auburn hair, trying to keep a serious face. Sim snickered, words on the tip of his tongue.
Don't say it.
Aria raised her fist. Sim placed the pillow back over his face and laughed. Aria punched him on the shoulder for even laughing at the unspoken joke. Sim yelped into the pillow.
Don't. My shoulder is killing me.
He said to her through the pillow.
Don't look at me. Get Otto to massage your shoulder.
Aria replied, knowing too well what he was trying to do. She picked up her book again to read, unable to hold back a snicker.
No, thanks.
Sim replied, sitting up and moving to the end of the bed next to her. Aria sighed. She placed the book back down and moved around behind him.
Fine.
She said, beginning to massage the top of his shoulder.
You have more knots than a pretzel.
Feels like it too.
Sim replied, tensing in pain.
What did you do today?
Read a bit, cleaned up the library, yelled at Otto for not washing his bowl from breakfast.
Well, that was mine, actually.
I know. I just decided to yell at Otto about it instead of you for once. He's no better.
Sim laughed.
Oh, I have something to show you.
Aria stopped and lay back on the bed. She reached over to the nightstand and grabbed the picture frame from off the top. Holding the frame, she crossed her arms around Sim's neck and showed him the photo of her and Sim standing with Erland on the day he awarded them both their honorary titles as guardians.
I had Merrick make a frame for it for us.
Sim took the picture from her and eyed it critically.
My mouth is open.
At least you look better than I do.
She replied. The two of them stared at the photo, reflecting on bygone times.
This world's not the same without him,
said Sim. Aria gazed at the photo, resting her chin on his aching shoulder.
It's like I always say, hon. We all make our own history. He made his with us a part of it.
Sim set the photo down on the bed and lay back down. Aria relaxed back into the crook of his arm. Sim stared up at the ceiling, thinking back on his adventures with the man who taught him everything. Aria moved her head onto his chest, listening to the sound of his heart beating softly.
We need to get back to work. We can't keep going out by ourselves.
I love you.
Aria lifted her head as she spoke and looked at him. Sim gazed back at her for a moment.
I love you too,
Sim replied. Aria laid back down on his arm.
I'm sorry I haven't said it enough these past few days. Next trip we'll go together again.
No more procrastinating?
No more. It's time to move on.
Aria replied. Sim reached over and lifted the photo up and looked at it. Aria grabbed the other corner of the photo as they stared at it together, ready to remember the past and look forward to the future.
I was worn out from my back-to-back series of trips, so she chose to take the next trip on her own and let me rest. I think she figured it would be a simple search, but with each number of trips we both took alone, the chance of something going wrong without the other seemed imminent.
Sim walked down the stairs to the basement, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The ark hummed lightly below. Otto sat in the desk chair, reading a book while he waited.
Hey, where's Aria?
Asked Sim, walking over to him from the base of the steps. Otto pointed at the ark. Otto didn't even bother to look away from his book.
There was an alert while you two were upstairs. Low energy.
I thought we were going to start going out together again.
Yeah, she said that. But she also said you were tired and deserve your rest, kid.
Why didn't she take her bag and communicator?
Your bag was already packed, and I had already configured yours for the trip thinking you would both be going. She didn't want to waste time.
Well, how long does she have?
Otto closed his book around his thumb and looked at the computer screen.
She had 7 hours, but she's down to 45 minutes now. Hopefully, she'll be back here any minute. Last message she sent, she said she had found the traveler and was about to head back. I told her to get her ass in gear.
What did she say?
Told me her ass was none of my business.
Otto replied, reopening his book to read. Sim chuckled. He began to grow concerned, but tried to maintain his trust in his better half. Aria knew what she was doing.
All right. Holler for me when she gets back. You want anything for breakfast?
Asked Sim, heading back toward the stairs.
Nah, already ate.
Replied Otto. Sim walked halfway up the stairs before he paused at the sound of an incoming message beep on Otto's computer.
Hold up. She sent a new message.
Muttered Otto, once again closing his book. Sim turned to watch over the railing, listening as Otto played the message.
Otto, please help me. They took her, and they...
Shouted Aria over the speaker, crying in a frightening panic. She could hardly get her words out between each sobbing gasp for air.
I can't find my way back. Please. You've got to help me. Please.
The message ended with the sound of her crying over the speakers. Sim ran down the stairs and straight to Aria's locker. He threw the metal door open as Otto jumped from his chair and ran over to him.
No, kid, you can't!
He said, reading the panic in Sim's face. Sim glared back at him. A fire in his heart surged with every beat, ready to dive head first into the shallow waters.
Sim, listen to me. You can't go.
Why not?
Yelled Sim, his face red and his blood boiling.
She only has 40 minutes left. If you go in, you'll both have less than 20 to find her.
I can find her in that amount of time.
Said Sim, grabbing his backpack and throwing it on over his shoulders. He was still dressed in his pajama bottoms, his shoes still upstairs, but he didn't care. The only thing that mattered was saving Aria before time ran out.
Sim, stop!
Shouted Otto, slamming the locker door closed on him.
Get out of my way. I'm not going to leave her to die alone.
Sim pushed Otto to the side and reopened his locker.
You don't have time, kid. If you go, you'll both die, and everything Erlen worked for will be lost. Neither one of us wants to lose her too. You most of all, but running in there blind is suicide. A sure way to destroy everything Erlen worked for.
The computer beeped with another incoming message alert. Sim and Otto both froze. Otto rushed to his computer, sweeping his books and papers off the desk to the floor to grab the mouse and play the message. Sim stood at the locker, staring at the screen.
Sim. I'm sorry, Sim.
Cried Aria. With each long pause, Sim could hear her sobbing, trying to catch her breath.
I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry. I should have... I always loved you. From the day we first met, I loved you. I knew. From the moment we met, you were the person I cared most about in all my life. I'm sorry I put that burden on you. Since I met you, I knew that life had given me someone to love so special. It couldn't even be from my world. I'll always love you. No matter what. I'll always love you.
Aria's crying stopped. The message ended. Sim fell to his knees. He wept with Otto kneeling at his side, knowing it would be the last time he would ever hear her voice again. Sim stared blankly at the path before them, still unable to look Allie in the eyes.
She never came back. I sat in the same spot for a full day, blindly hoping the arc would just magically start up again and she would come walking back through. I missed 2 trips before I finally gave up. From then on, it was just Otto and me. I grew shallow without her, like the spark in me burned out. With Erlen's death, it already started to fade. With Aria's death, it was extinguished altogether. Otto urged me to find another partner, but I refused. I couldn't. I did my job alone, making it my rule never to get involved with anyone, not even in worlds. I started to think that because of all the times Aria, Erland, and I gone out together, meeting fresh faces, becoming tangled in people's lives, changing the future of every world with each trip. A price had to be paid. I promised myself never to give myself a break after that. No matter the call, no matter how tired or injured I was, I would always be there with the hope that maybe one day I'd join them and suffer the same fate.
Allie's heart ached, watching the sadness in his eyes.
I'm sorry, Sam.
Don't be. It's not your fault. It's no one's fault. I've spent the last few years trying to accept that it wasn't even my fault. My only regret is that I didn't go with her. I can't blame her for that. I would have done the same.
What about me?
Asked Allie, looking directly at him.
I understand if you don't want to help me anymore.
No.
Sim replied in a reassuring voice.
I'm glad you're here, Allie. Otto was right. I need someone to help me. Someone new to watch my back. You've helped me reignite that spark I thought I'd lost.
Allie fought the blush creeping up to her cheeks. She punched him in the shoulder.
Stop, you're gonna make me cry.
Sim laughed. They continued to follow Chris up the road, noticing several black columns of smoke billowing up from the horizon over the hill, carrying an oddly pungent, foul odor. Chris stopped near the crest of the hill, looking back to watch Allie and Sim catch up to him. He pointed at the horizon. Their eyes followed his finger.
We're here.
Beneath the washed-out sky rested a city with tall stone buildings and reinforced walls, guarded by a river flowing along one side. The columns of smoke billowed up from deep within the city.
Where's that smoke coming from?
Asked Sim.
The dead. The Lord's pestilence has ravaged them as well.
Chris spoke without emotion, moving on down the dirt road.
The whole city.
You said you wanted to find Lady Emily. This is where she went.
Replied Chris. Allie quickened her pace to catch up with Chris. He continued to walk, face hard, and eyes fixed on the road ahead.
We're sorry for taking you away from your father.
Allie said, her voice cracking at the last word.
It is what he wanted me to do. The burden of restoring my family's place at God's side rests on me now.
Chris looked out the corner of his eyes at her.
What did your family do?
It is not what they did, or my father. It was my great-grandfather that bestowed this burden on us.
Chris lifted his hand to show her the ring his father had given to him.
This ring was given to him by King Philip, given with the task of joining their crusades to reclaim the Holy Land in the name of our Lord. My grandfather turned his back on the crusades when he reached Constantinople. He was quickly stripped of his land and title and excommunicated by the Pope for it. Since then, my family has lived in exile, hoping for a chance to reclaim our place at the Lord's table.
I'm sorry you carry such a heavy burden,
replied Allie, trying to keep up with Chris's stride.
For a woman, you do talk quite a lot, and apologize for many things which are out of your control,
said Chris. Allie pondered his statement, uncertain whether he was being rude, complimenting her, or just stating a fact.
And you think helping us will help you restore that honor?
Asked Sim from behind them.
No, but perhaps it will be a start. But if finding Lady Emily with you will set me on my path, so be it. My bow and my body are at the Lord's command.
Chris replied, stepping ever closer to the city buried in a cloud of grim smoke. Sim and Allie looked out at the city as they walked at Chris's side, ready to step further into the age of darkness before them.
Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Elissa Park, the voice of Aria from Some Adventures Across Time. If you've enjoyed your adventure across time so far, be sure to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/TS Wieland. With your support, you'll gain early access to the next chapter of the book and even a copy of the book itself. With your contribution, more thrilling and inspiring audiobooks can be made every day through the hard work, time, and dedication of voice actors and artists all across the world, including myself, all working together. From all of us here in the world between worlds, we'd like to thank you for joining us on our adventure.